Continue today with the book of Nahum, chapter 1, Masa Ninveh, a pronouncement, the burden that will come to Ninveh. Sefer Chazon Nahum Ha'el Koshi. This is the book of the prophecy, or the visions of Nahum of El Koshi. We don't know where El Kosh is. There are those who say it's up in the Galilee. There are those who say it was part of Yehuda. We do not know where this place is. This is the only book in the Tanakh. We refer to Tanakh as 24 books. We don't really them called Sefer by themselves. Here it's called a Sefer. We know some of them are called scrolls, some of them called Megillot. This is called a book. Maybe it was found following the death of Nahum. Maybe that's why it's called a Sefer. Unclear as to why that is the case, that this one more than the other ones are called, is referred to in this way as a Sefer. Okay, so let's see, what is Nahum going to say? El kano v'nokem Adonai uva'al chema nokem Adonai litzara v'noter hu lo oivav. See a word there, the main word that's used in this verse, used 3 times, the word nokem, revenge. Right? The eternal God is a passionate, avenging God. God is vengeful. God is fierce in the wrath. God takes on vengeance on opponents and rages against foes. Book of Nahum is where Christian writers said, right, the God of the New Testament, etc., is better, is more moral, kinder than this vengeful God of the Old Testament. That's what some said. Now, this is yes, the word vengeance is used, but this is for oivav and sarav. It's for opponents, for foes, it's for people presumably who have done something wrong. Together with that, when you talk about God being strong, vengeful, rageful, we have to look at verse 3. Adonai erech apayim gdal koach v'nakeh lo yinakeh Adonai b'sufa uv'sa'ara darko v'anan avak raglav. But God at the same time is slow to anger. God is right, has great forbearance. God doesn't just punish everyone. God travels in the whirlwind and the storm with clouds, the dust on divine feet. Interesting. How do those words exactly, make sense? What does that mean that God is he can wreak havoc. His feet are here. It could be mighty winds, or it could be something that brings breath and brings kindness. So God can be both things, I would say, based upon this analogy and based upon these 2 verses. Goer bayam, v'yab shehu, v'chol ha'naharot hecheriv, umlal bashan v'charmel uferach levanon umlal. So God is goer. Goer is to rebuke. It's a word that's used, I believe, in the Shulchan Aruch, that if people are talking during Chazar Hashatz, repetition of Shemona Esrei, you gar and bo, you rebuke them, you tell them to be quiet. I could be wrong on the exact language, but I believe so. And it makes all of the rivers, right? It destroys the rivers. It dries up the sea. Bashan and Carmel will suffer. They will languish, and the blossoms of the Lebanon and Lebanon, right? Lebanon, which has the great trees, and thus you would imagine is very green. It withers away. Harim ra'ashu mimenu v'agvaot hitmogugu v'tisaretz mipanav v'teva v'chol yoshveva. The mountains quake because of God. The hills will melt, will fall down. The earth, right? The earth is heaved up before God, the world and everything that's in it, right? So this is, again, God is coming, God is here, God's power is dynamic. Lifnei za'amo mi ya'amod, in verse 6. Who can stand before God's wrath? Or mi yakum b'charon po chamato nichtacha ish v'atzurim nitzu mimenu. Who can resist God's fury and anger? God's anger pours out like a fire, ka'esh, and rocks, right? Tzur are shattered as a result. B'nai Yisrael refer to God as a rock in the Torah, in different places, right? God refers to himself as a rock, or Moshe, and the song of Azinu refers to God as rock. Here, God is the smasher of rock. Things that you think are permanent. Rocks, right? We place them on headstones. Rocks are smashed into smithereens. Things that you think are permanent can be destroyed by God, which makes a lot of sense here when we're referring to in the Nineveh. Nineveh, the capital city of Assyria, the same Nineveh which Yonah went to and visited and told them they would be destroyed, and they repented. Eventually, Nineveh, which was this great empire, huge empire, which was destroyed eventually by the Babylonians, and then the Persians came. They think that they can last forever like a rock. No. Everything will be shattered. In contrast to the destruction that Nahum is saying will occur to Nineveh and its inhabitants, Tova Adonai lama'oz biyom tzara v'yodei chosevo. God is good to the people who have hope, the people who trust in God, those who seek refuge in God. God is good to those people as opposed to these ones. Continuing in verse 8, Uvashetef over kala yasem koma voivad yiradeh hoshach. But with a great flood, God makes an end to her place, meaning to Nineveh, to the enemies, and chases enemies into the darkness, into Choshech. Ma techashavun el Adonai kalahu oseh. Right? You nation of Nineveh or others, you're going to plan against God, you're going to set up your attacks, you're going to get ready. It's not going to work. Kalahu, it's going to be kol, it's going to be destruction, it's going to be complete. Lo takum pamayim tzara. You cannot, there's not going to be a second battle. You can't stand up and fight God again. God's victory is complete. Ki ad sirim sivuchim uche savam sivuim uklu kikashya veshmale. Like those who are in love, full with drink, and what happens to them? They are burned up like thorns, like straw that is completely dry. Meaning it's difficult to understand this verse exactly, right? But seemingly they're full of drink. We've had the idea of drink many times. You're drunk on your own success, right? They think that they're full of honor, but complete destructions are going to come. And some might say that it means that it's going to come when they are drunk, when they are drinking, when they're full of this success, either figuratively or literally. Think back, we didn't get there, the book of Daniel, where it talks about the last king of the Babylonians with the writing on the wall, and on that night when they're having a party, they're going to be destroyed. They're not paying attention. They're full of success. They're full of their drink, and destruction will come to them. Continuing, Pasuk Yud, verse 11. Those who plot against God, who design evil against God, it's not going to work. Those people are bli'al. It's a word we had used a lot in the book of Shoftim, Shmuel, Melachim, bli'ol, somebody who is without a yoke, somebody who is, in a sense, a sinner, somebody who does not just worship God, but follow God. It's a very pejorative word, and that's what it's saying about these people. Continuing now with verse 12. Ko amar Adonai. Im shleimim v'chein rabim v'chein nagozu va'avar v'initech lo a'anech od. Even when the days were full and many, right? Even though God is saying, even though I have afflicted you, I will afflict you no more. So presumably here, we're going back, right? There was time where people were, in Nineveh, things were good, and in Israel, things were bad. But in Israel, eventually, things will be good. Things will get back. You think I didn't answer you, but I will. And now I will break his yoke from you, and you will be freed from his cords, from his shackles, from his chains. Okay, so right, the yoke of Ashur is going to be off you. Ashur, which destroys the northern kingdom, exiles the 10 tribes. Ashur, which basically destroys all of Yehuda. Only the miracle that happened with Sancheriv, where Chizkiyahu and his men, perhaps in the last book, right, we said because the great prophecy of Micha Hamorashati, they managed to survive. So they will be saved. There are those who say that this prophecy comes during the time of Chizkiyahu, which would make more sense than, let's say, coming later after Chizkiyahu's death and his son Menashe. It's later. It's not during the time of Chizkiyahu that the Assyrian kingdom is destroyed, but it would be said, seemingly make more sense that it would be said during the time of Chizkiyahu rather than during the time of his son Menashe, who was, of course, an evil sinner. Continuing verse 14. V'tziva alecha Adonai lo yizhara mishimcha od mibeit Elohecha achrit pesel masecha asim kivrecha ki kalota. Finishes the verse that God has given him a command that your name will not continue forever. I will do away, I will get rid of all of your idols and all of your molten images. Right? Your grave will sort of be the end because it is worthless. So here, seemingly, he's turning back from Bnei Israel back to Assyria, this king who thinks they're so great. There is no further king that's going to come after you. We have the first chapter of the book of Nahum. The word Nahum means, of course, Nachem means to comfort, to offer comfort to somebody, Nechama. This book is certainly not a book that's offering comfort to the people of Assyria. Perhaps you can say, in a sense, offering comfort to Yonah, who didn't want to give the prophecy to the people of Nineveh. Now, Nahum seemingly is living later than Yonah, but right, yeah, Yonah was upset when God forgave Nineveh. Here, like Yonah, Nahum incorporates, although it's his own version of the 13 attributes, the Yud Gimel Rachamim, he incorporates them into his prophecy as well. And the reason is God is not just vengeance. There's a lot of vengeance in this chapter, but there's also compassion and there's also mercy. Now, the compassion and the mercy is the Nachem, is the Nahum. That's what's going to happen to Bnei Israel as opposed to Assyria, which, like a rock, thought that it would live forever, like all great civilizations, the Greeks, the Romans, the British Empire, etc., etc. Everybody thought they would be around forever, the Soviet Union, but that's not the case. The only true rock is God, and all other rocks will be do not last forever. When did Nahum live? Unclear exactly. Probably around the time, like we said, Chizkiyahu Menashe, sometime in the 650s, 620s, 630s, before the Common Era. He would be placed more or less the similar times as many of the other prophets who we've seen recently, Micha, Amos, and Yeshaya, in the same general period. He, like Yonah, though, addresses most of his stuff towards Nineveh. Did he say it to them directly? Is he just saying it to Bnei Israel to offer comfort? The latter makes more sense than anything else, but we don't know too much about him. Other than this is when he lives. We'll see an allusion to the destruction of cities in Egypt, which should place him after the year 663. There are those who place him around the year 610, 612, 615 before the Common Era. Unclear exactly. This book, which is not well known, it is read as parts of it for Haftorot, but who is Nahum? How will he give Nechama to Bnei Israel? We will continue to see over the course of the next couple of chapters.